I think I'm gonna form up one tool that a blacksmith would sometimes be asked to make by, especially by a hunter or by a soldier or a militiaman or something. Anybody who carried a rifle, they'd want to, even though screws were rare in the 18th century, you always found screws on a firearm. And so if you had a firearm, you'd want to make sure you had what was basically the equivalent of a screwdriver. They called them by the funny names of, they called them turn screws in the 18th century. But
oh, nice.
basically, that's just when you'd want them, though, is if you had a firearm. So I'm about to form up a little tool, a turn screw. This is just going to be a little curly cue that's going to end up on the handle. A little decorative feature.
Oh, that's nice.
And that's going to end up somewhere down here. The basic handle design is it's going to look something along the lines of that. Something like that. So, the idea with this is just to be a little palm-sized, pouch-size, just a little handheld flathead screwdriver.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice.
The most crucial situation I can think of a person would need one of these would be maybe if their flint broke, whether they were in a battle or something like that. They want to get the jaws open on that arm open and change the flint out. So I would imagine that would be probably your most vulnerable time, especially if you were, faced a human adversary who would likely be aware that your flint just broke and probably life was probably in much more danger than it would be otherwise. It's a little integral handle.
Oh, nice.
It's going to be, it's off center right now. I'm going to center it back up on one of our next to last steps. Or center it up as close as I can. Make it look a little nicer.
Oh, so the fire is up top there, it's not inside the rock?
What's that?
The fire is on top, it's not inside the rock?
Yeah. So the basic design of my forge here is, see how I got layers of creek rock? Well,
Yeah.
right here, actually this whole section here, there's about 2 to 3 layers missing. So it's got a little depression in there.
Oh, I see.
And I've got fire bricks and stones built up to make a smaller little forge area right now. But if I needed to have a bigger forge area, I can just, take these stones out and actually build it all in this area right here if I needed to.
Oh, that's cool.
Which it is pretty versatile actually. Yeah, really neat.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
And they did have files back then. They weren't making them out here in the frontier. They were coming back, a lot of times imported from England or from some type of colonial town where there was a lot of craftsmen and maybe some experts. Probably buy files there.
Oh, that's cool.
They would have been expensive, but there would have been files, and they would have been some of the unsung workhorses. But typically a blacksmith was trying to use their skill as such to where they didn't have to do much file work, such that way they wouldn't dull their good files.
Oh, yeah.
The mark of a really good craftsman is when They don't have to do any file work and stuff like that, but they can just do everything with the hammer precisely.
Do they make,
Wow.
you make like tomahawks and stuff like that, and knives? And,
Yes, they would have done that some out here on the frontier. They would have been mainly forming things out of iron, though. They would have occasionally probably been working with a little bit of steel, like on axes and forming up little fire strikers and stuff. Steel overall would have been real rare in the time period. There would have been a lot of items that you would have expected to be made out of steel that would have been made out of wrought iron, actually. There we go, that's centered up pretty nicely. So now my next to last step, or my last step here, where I'm technically using a mild steel as my material because they don't make wrought iron anymore the same way. So now if you use wrought iron, you have to salvage it. So we pretty much try to save our wrought iron we have. But if I was making it out of wrought iron, which is what they would have had in the time period, and I wanted it to be a tough tool, I'd actually need to refine my iron before I even got started on making the tool. And I could do that by basically heating it up to forge welding temperatures and basically folding it over on itself, forge welding itself, and repeating that. A lot of how they make the Damascus steel and the knife shows with their blended steels. It's very similar. You're working the iron and you actually are refining the internal structure and making it stronger. And so that's why it's worth it to do that. You would do that beforehand, and then you just form out your item, and you would basically just be making stuff out of a stronger iron. And but where I'm working steel, I can actually heat treat it. Iron doesn't respond to a heat treat, but I'm using steel, so I can technically harden this to a degree. It doesn't harden the same way knife steel is hardened. I've actually got to heat it and quench it at a much lower temperatures relatively. It's going to be like a dull red. So I'm going to have to let it fall to the right temperature here. But I won't get any brittleness or anything. Basically, I don't have to temper it. I could just quench it and it'll be, I guess calling it hard is kind of a stretch when you compare to the hardness of knife steels, but by doing that, it's not as soft as it would be.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah. And thankfully, because the crowd is as such as it is today, and we're not competing with other visitors, I get to give this one to you guys.
Wow. I'll take it. Oh, wow. Thank you so much.
I like to add those little curlicues on there because they really
Great.
elevate the work. Those curlicues actually got to have what I call a true name. Like, so in the ornamental or decorative world, and also in situations of carpentry and of other kind of decorative situations, you see curlicues and curls like that. They're sometimes called finials. So if you ever hear a reference to a finial, a lot of time they might probably are talking about that curlicue element on whatever it is they're describing.
Do you ever
Well,
get, like,
thank
a
you
new-
so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.